I'm just going to do my Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Sam White. I'm the director of the Stratford Festival's 2024 production of Romeo and Juliet.
I'm Weyni Mengesha, artistic director of Soulpepper Theater and a past director at the Stratford Festival.
Hi, Weyni.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great now that you're here.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you and you fitting me in between rehearsals. So I wanted to start off by just talking about, you're a Detroit native, you're here. I wanted to know how aware you were of the Stratford Festival and how you got connected to the Stratford Festival.
Well, first of all, I want to start by saying that I'm always thinking about people who did things before me because that's the path that I follow to go to different places. So, and I've shared this with you before, I wouldn't be at the Stratford Festival if you hadn't been at the Stratford Festival. So you being at the festival in 2011, I think was permission, affirmation, and a door opening for me to be here now. So that's kind of how it started, by you starting. Mm-hmm. And then in I think it was 2018, I was a Langamite and a part of the director's workshop. And from there, 5 years later, Antoni asked me to come back and direct Wedding Band by Alice Childress. And this year, a year after Wedding Band, I'm back to direct Romeo and Juliet. But for me, it started with you. So that's how I got here.
Oh, well, that is
here.
A huge honor. And when you asked me to do this interview, I was very excited because I came, of course, to see your other production last year. I was really excited to see your work and very excited to see that you were doing another production of another pair of star-crossed lovers, an R&J, and that you were doing it in the big festival house, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that, and very, very happy to watch your work. And I saw your show yesterday.
Thank you.
Which was beautiful.
Thank you.
First preview was really wonderful to see the audience reaction. First preview, and living in Detroit and taking a project up here is taking time out of your. It's an effort. So I want to know what made you say yes to R&J.
Well, if you're from Michigan, Stratford it's kind of the beacon for Shakespeare. And I can't say my love for Shakespeare came from the Stratford Festival. That came from my mama, Janet White.
Okay.
That's the root of my love for Shakespeare. We read Shakespeare because of my mother, my brother and I, C.S. Lewis, the Bible, all the big books, Lord of the Rings. So my love for Shakespeare started when I was 8 years old because I got in trouble for listening to Soulpepper's Push It. And she made me read the complete works from cover to cover as punishment.
Love it.
Yeah, because she was not having hip hop in our house. For some reason, my mom just always hated rap music. And so Shakespeare was the punishment. It ended up being a gateway for my career. But at that time, it was punishment. Years later, though, I heard about the Stratford Festival and I would come every now and then. And I was fascinated by how epic and big the plays were. They were much different than how they looked in my head, but I was always sort of fascinated by the bigness of it all. It seemed like its own place, its own cute little town, and in this cute little town there were these amazing theaters where you could go see really good Shakespeare. And so that's how I started to develop a love for the Stratford Festival specifically. But that wasn't until like late teens, early 20s. And I had already fallen in love with Shakespeare by then. I went away for a long time to be a stand-up comedian. I was living in Vegas in a motel with like Elvis impersonators and showgirls, writing jokes for a while. Decided to come back to Detroit and start my own Shakespeare company, and that reignited my relationship with Shakespeare. And eventually I developed a relationship with the Stratford Festival. And I think because of Antoni and because he has really created a space for me to thrive, that's what brought me here. Because it takes a lot for me to leave Detroit, because I love Detroit.
Sure.
And I also live in Paris a third of the year. So I have to feel like it's a place where I can thrive and do my best work. And Antoni has created that environment for me. So that's why I'm here, because of Antoni Cimolino, and because I can thrive here. I don't go to places where I can't thrive.
I love it. I love the long love you've had of Shakespeare. And I mean, in a way, Salt and Pepper, they're talking about deep longing. And so is
That's
R&J.
right.
There's
That's
a
right.
connection there you're making.
That's true.
And tell me more about this play. Why specifically out of the works you love R&J and why you wanted to jump in on that?
Yeah, well, it's the first play I could relate to. I mean, when I was 8, I probably couldn't relate to any of them because they were a little bit too mature for my 8-year-old self. But because my mother had me read the plays in repetition, by the time I was a teenager, Romeo and Juliet is the one that sort of struck a chord because they were teenagers too. And so fast forward to all these years later, when the opportunity came to me, I thought, well, this is the one that I know the best because it's the one that I had some affinity with first out of the canon. And I have to say, though, just being honest, I was really nervous about directing Romeo and Juliet at first because they've done it a lot at the Stratford Festival. And I know that theater goers can be quite nostalgic for what they've seen before, and they hold standards by whatever sort of they've seen before, in the 60s or the 50s or the 70s. Even long before I was actually born. So I was nervous about this production being judged by whatever people had seen before because of the festival's history. But then Antoni had a talk with me about just being myself and bringing myself to the production. And I let that sort of sink in and eventually decided, okay, I'm just going to do my Romeo and Juliet. A version of Romeo and Juliet that I would have appreciated, when I was a kid and my mom introduced me to it, and not hold my standards for this play or this work or this story by what anyone else has done, because that's actually quite boring. But rather lean into what my standards are, which is the language clear and is the story clear? Is the design beautiful? And most importantly, am I telling a story for right here, right now, not what someone else has done in the past?
Right. And I mean, it is, I can see as an 8-year-old, I mean, it is like one of these incredible pieces that really surrounds a 14-year-old mindset and growing into adulthood. And it really is an interesting entry point for a younger generation. At your age now, what was your entry point coming back to it and revisiting it? As far as, what was your way in that as you speak about like right now, right here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right here, right now, I'm probably, the first director who's looked like me to direct Romeo and Juliet at the Stratford Festival. And again, I wouldn't have thought that it was possible if you hadn't directed here Hosanna in 2011, 2010, 2011, 2011. And so that gave me permission, I think, to say, okay, I can direct a classical piece at the Stratford Festival because Weyni's done it before, because I don't like to be the first to do anything. Being the first is not fun, and it's not something that I aspire to do. So I thought, okay, right here, right now, I can do it because, a decade before Weyni opened the door. Okay, so we got that. I know that I can be here. And then second to that, I thought, when you look at the world and sort of what's happening around us, the people who are impacted the most by the conditions of the world, whether it was a pandemic or wars, et cetera, are usually young people. And so when you look at Verona, the young people in the play are impacted the most. Romeo, Juliet, Mercutio, Benvolio, who goes off and does who knows what. He's become quite isolated, I think, after Romeo is banished and Mercutio is killed. And Tybalt. It's all the young people. And at the end, you have the two fathers and the one mother who are still there. And that's no different than where we are right now. If you look from, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, the people who are impacted by the decisions of adults are young people like the characters in Romeo and Juliet. So I thought, okay, great. I know that I have permission to be here because of Weyni. I know the world needs this story right now because of what's happening in the world. And more importantly, I know that, I am embracing my inheritance because my mother gave me Shakespeare. And so she's no longer with us because she passed away in 2022. But all of the gifts that she gave me, like Shakespeare, are still here for me to lean into, to cultivate, to honor. And so with this production, that's what I've been able to do. So I came back. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. I didn't realize she passed recently.
Yeah.
Wow. What a beautiful honoring of that legacy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. And as you say, it does, I think it's really important for us all to gather around and listen to the opinions of the younger generation, and it really centers them in a way that you don't often see on stage, which
right.
you know, every time you see a Shakespeare, there's like some new entry point, and you see it again, and you see it, you know, even though it's redone so many times.
That's right.
I feel like your take is fresh again, and I want to talk about that a bit. Like, you decided to do it in period. Tell me about your thoughts about that, how you came to that decision.
Yeah, it's period in the sort of aesthetic.
In the aesthetic, yeah.
Yeah,
just in the
and it's here and now as far as the energy of it. I think I wanted to do it period because I think if people wanted to put me in a box or give me a niche, site specific work is sort of my jam. I can pop up anywhere and make Shakespeare accessible for most people. That's sort of my strength. Whether it's Antoni and Cleopatra in a recycling center and dumpster diving and finding all of our costumes out of receptacles, because we've done that before. I'm at my home theater at Shakespeare in Detroit. Or if it's, you know, popping into an abandoned mansion and doing Henry V with old suitcases, I can do that. That's the stuff that I like to do because Shakespeare's for everybody. That man is dead, you know, but his work is alive and well. And I like to make the work, which is still living, the plays, which are still very much alive and still have DNA, unlike the man. I like to make them present and available for people. But I thought, okay, at the Stratford Festival, I have more resources. So what do I want to do with this play? Well, people would expect me to do something, I think, really what folks might consider experimental. Or they might expect me to do something sort of off the cuff. I'm going to present this play in a period piece, the Italian Renaissance, which I think was an exciting period of history, but make it fresh because I don't think people would expect Sam White to do a Romeo and Juliet in tights. So that was just to give people a sample of what I can do in something that's hyper classical.
And for you, new, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And make it still fresh, though. And fresh is a key word because I think there's a lot of ideas around Shakespeare, which are very much, in my opinion, built around inaccessible things like antiquated ideas about who's in a Shakespeare play, what it should sound like, what it should feel like. And I push back against that with this production and say that you can have a bunch of beautiful actors and beautiful costumes and tell this beautiful story, but make it more global and provide affinity for young people who see it. No matter what background, age you are, you'll be able to look on stage and see someone who looks like you. So I'm really proud that this production does that. It's period in its aesthetic, but in its sort of essence, its energy, in its big vision, for lack of better word, it is very much a play that is created, curated, and has been, made from the heart of 2024. I'm a millennial. I'm a geriatric millennial, they call us. And so that's my perspective and my references. I have my mother's Shakespeare was her Shakespeare, and her references were much different than mine. And so I'm very much interested in moving Shakespeare forward into the future while paying homage to the past. And so we do that by having an Italian Renaissance Romeo and Juliet, but yet it still feels relevant for youthful people.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the generation that's grew up on it now, the Z's, saw the Baz Luhrmann, they saw the movie.
That's right.
You know, so they actually, that's how they visualize it probably more than, you know. And so there's something interesting in going back to the text and but it's really incredible also what you've done, you know, going from that Vegas motel room and the stand-up and then deciding I'm going to go and create a company that's site-specific and specifically does Shakespeare and introduce Shakespeare, like your mother did to you, to a whole community of people in Detroit. And it's been very successful. How many years has that company been around?
11. It'll be 11 this year. Yeah, 11 years, a really long time. But again, you know, I can't claim to be like so cool or innovative because I take inspiration from people who are already doing cool things, you know, and even nowadays. And that's why I mentioned if I was going to have a conversation like this, I only wanted to have it with Weyni, you know, with you, because I just admire and respect the work that you do. I was telling you yesterday that I want to see your Hamlet at Soulpepper, which, you know, plays May 23rd and 25th. Because
plug. I love the plug.
I love taking and seeing and witnessing and experiencing stories that people would consider traditional. I'm using air quotes because I'm like, who's tradition? But anyway, traditional stories and telling them from different perspectives, and that's the work that you do and the work that's done at Soulpepper. And if that kind of work didn't exist in the world, then Shakespeare in Detroit and myself specifically, I wouldn't be inspired to keep creating. I have to know that other things are happening in the world so that I don't feel isolated when I'm working at home in Detroit. And because you exist, and other people too, other people like Nataki Garrett, like Dominique Williams.
And more so.
That's right. Liliana Blank Cruz, who I am a huge fan of, who just did a beautiful, beautiful opera at the Met. Because you all exist, I feel like, okay.
And Sam White.
Thank you. I feel inspired to do the kind of work that I do at home and to sustain it. Because sustaining something is hard. Starting something, anybody can start something, I feel. But being able to sustain it for more than a decade has been because I feel like there's these different pillars around the continent, like yourself, who are also doing it. Because again, if you're a founder, specifically a founder, it can be very lonely. Because you're starting something from scratch, but when you know that there's something to reach for and that there's other people doing great work around you, even if you don't know them, you know them. You know exactly what they're going through. Like when I asked you this
interview with Sam, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know her, but I'm coming.
Yeah, because
I've been watching what you've been doing, and it's so inspiring what you did in Detroit and how you continue to center your audiences and people who might not even have a relationship to theater, and now you're considering them in all of the work that you're doing deeply to really grow who can feel like they're a part of theater, right? That like you talked about Shakespeare having that exclusivity, but I think theater in general, like in the Western world, it's something we have to keep speaking about, it being for everybody. Keep speaking about that, the tradition actually being just about a circle of people sitting together that we've been doing everywhere around the world for all,
that's
since
right.
history. It's an ancient practice that's for everyone. Yeah.
That's right. And it's such an honor. I love making theater. It's like, I just want to make plays. If I could just make plays for the rest of my life, I'd be such a happy person. It's really all I want to do, honestly. I mean, there's other things I like doing too, but primarily I just want to make plays but make them accessible for everybody. And I think the theater world is changing so much. If we want to continue this tradition moving forward for the next 10 to 20 years, we have to invite young people to come see the show. And so when I was thinking about Romeo and Juliet, I literally was thinking about myself as an 8-year-old and then as a teenager who connected with Romeo and Juliet, because the people who are 15, 16, 17, 18, even 20 or 21 now are the future patrons, are the future artists. And I think if we continue to just perpetuate what has been done before, then dust will collect,
Listen, I thought it was a beautiful moment. I came to sit down, have never met you in person, but I happened to be sitting in your row at the first preview. Yeah. And did you see the 2 young Black girls sitting between us?
Yes, I did.
There's like 14, 15-year-old girls who were just having the time of their life.
The one with the cute box braids, I saw her.
Box braids, laughing, enjoying themselves. And I was like, look at this moment. This is so beautiful.
That's it.
Which is why I was like, yes, I'm coming to celebrate this moment. I mean, it's in the 70-year history, it's been a slow build to have Black perspectives and intersecting with Shakespeare in this way. And I'm so glad you said yes. And it's a beautiful production. And yeah, it was a moment yesterday of affirmation, just for those 2 young women sitting between us. I thought was quite beautiful.
I know. I saw that. And I thought that was incredibly, it's just inspiring.
They felt like it was theirs. That was it,
Yeah.
There was nothing in the way. The tights are no tights. There was an ownership there. That they saw themselves. And I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah, because it belongs to them. It's for them, because I leave. The show will be directed by June 1st fully. We're in previews right now, but I will have made all of my changes and gone home by June 1st. And then it's the audiences, and as I said, I'm always thinking about young people. And by young people, I mean the young people in age, but I also mean young at heart. It's for the young at heart too, this show is. If they're not sort of digging their claws into the past and are really excited to see how you can continue after all of these centuries to tell this story over and over again, but do it in a way that's authentic to now. Do it in a way that feels as exuberant as Professor Harold Bloom says. Then this is the show for you. But if it's not anything that's been done in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, this is this Romeo and Juliet right here, right now. And it's excellent, by the way. And obviously I'm very biased, but we have some, names who people are used to seeing who are tremendous artists, like Graham Abbey.
Oh my God, he's great in that role.
Who's amazing as Lord Capulet.
Yes.
He's incredible. We have Jessica Hill, who plays Lady Capulet.
Beautiful.
And then we have Vanessa Sears as Juliet, fresh from Broadway, because she was on Broadway this time last year. And then we also have Jonathan Mason, who plays our Romeo. We have Scott Wentworth as the friar. So there's some really, Glynis Rainey as nurse.
Incredible cast.
Yeah. Really beautiful community of artists, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you say, young at heart. I think it appeals to everyone. And just to be reminded to go back into that space when there was, an equal measure of innocence, but also real dedication and passion to stand up and even die for what you believe. And, whether you want to call Juliet stubborn, headstrong, passionate, but educated, coming into herself, I feel like it's always a nice place to go back to for all of us to remember, like, what is that thing that we would stand for, and what is that thing to remember what unhindered love felt like. All of these things that you can go back to. It's a wonderful journey that you present in this play to go back to the space.
Thank you. Because it's all love. Like the Shakespeare theater, it's all sort of in the space of love. We do this art form. Most of us will never be millionaires. We do it for the love, even though I would say I'm extremely wealthy because I'm able to make plays for a living. Who can say that? And I'm from Detroit. Most people stand on a factory line and, make cars. And there's great honor in that. My father did that. But that's not the life for me. I'm so grateful and wealthy in that I get to make plays for a living.
So you decided to do Romeo and Juliet, and you went into the process. You had your ideas around the aesthetics and how you wanted to enter were there any surprises, any challenges along the way?
Yes. Act 2, Scene 4 was a challenge. And for anybody who's not a Shakespeare nerd like myself, you're probably like, what scene is that? And that's the scene when Romeo, after being with Juliet all night during the balcony scene, he finally returns to hang out with his friends on the street. And there's a goose exchange between Mercutio and Romeo. And I wanted to cut it because I've never seen it done well. I've never seen it where I sort of understood clearly what's happening between the two characters. And so I had a conversation with Andrew, who plays Mercutio, and Jonathan, who plays Romeo, ahead of us starting rehearsals. And I said, I'm going to cut this scene. I've never seen it done well before, so I don't want to do it. I don't even want to attempt it because it's never been done well. I haven't seen it done well before, or in a way that was palatable, where I could understand it and it made good sense. And they both fought for it. And I said, okay, we'll try it in rehearsals. It's a goose exchange. It's a lot of, you can't miss the scene I'm talking about if you come see the show.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's sort of where the phrase wild goose chase came from. And I shared with them we could try it. And if it didn't work out, I was going to keep the cut.
So they knew it was on the line. They knew they had to come to rehearsal ready.
They knew it was on the line. And the first time we rehearsed it, it just wasn't working for me.
Okay.
And I wanted to cut it then still, and they still continued to fight for it. And I said, okay, we'll give it a couple of more tries. And then I had to sort of think about the scene myself. What's happening in this scene just in my sort of prep for rehearsal? And I thought, oh, I know what this is. I know exactly what this is. I have to take this back to Detroit. Okay, this was when I was in high school, and we call it playing the dozens, which is just a battle of wits. It's when people go back and forth and you see who can come up with the most clever phrase or saying as a response to their friend. Think of it as a cipher. If you've ever seen 8 Mile, it's when Eminem was standing in the middle of the cipher and he would battle rap. Yeah. And I thought, okay, this is a cipher. I'll create a cipher. And then everybody will understand what it is. And so that's when you come see Romeo and Juliet, Act 2, Scene 4, Balthazar and Benvolio are sort of, because the audience is always responding to whoever had the last line with, oh, hey, oh, you know? So in the scene, Balthazar and Benvolio are just as essential to the scene because they give us context that there's a battle of wits between Mercutio.
They're keeping score.
Yeah, they're keeping score.
Yeah.
In this cipher, you know, and I hope Antoni doesn't mind me saying this. He even said, after he saw our first dress, Antoni, who's of course the artistic director here, that it's the most clear 2.4 he's seen before. And I thought, great. So when I took it back home and I thought of Eminem in a cipher in 8 Mile, I was able to create great clarity for myself. Bring that reference into the room.
You got all these.
That's it.
Thank you, hip hop.
Thank you, hip hop. My mother would be so mad.
I know.
That it all went back to that.
It's a good balance.
That's right.
Beautiful.
That's right. Speaking of paying homage to the past, I know you're interviewing me, but I do want to ask you. So because I said, you know, I think being the first is terrible. Being the first to do anything. I don't desire it. I've been the first to do a couple of things, and it's always difficult to be the first because when you're the first, it's always hard. You have just butterflies in your belly the whole time because you don't know what to expect when you're the first. So you were the first person, the first woman who looked like me to direct at the Stratford Festival ever.
I think Janet Sears did a studio show.
Janet Sears, that's right.
So yeah.
Yeah, let's pay homage to Janet.
Yeah.
You were the first I saw in 2011.
I know the feeling of first for sure.
Yeah.
And
what made you want to direct Hosanna?
I think just a beautiful play. At that time, actually, there was a community of donors, Black donors and supporters who were also like working with artists we were trying to advocate to, you know, be able to come in and to be able to tell stories as well. And so there was like this incredible community that supported that production, which was so beautiful, which, you know, sometimes we feel like we're alone, but then you have this community around you. And to be honest, it sounds crazy, but when you are carving the first path or you're and it definitely feels bumpy, there is a comfort in knowing that the next person is not going to have to go through that. You know, which is why like coming and interviewing you and being with you, hanging out with you and seeing you do the festival stage are such worthy moments for me, because hopefully the next person who directs on the festival stage also will not even think twice about the comparisons or failing and potentially that affecting the whole community. These are the ways that you think, you know. But I think step by step, we're empowering each other in these incredible ways. So I thank you for that too.
Well, I like to give people their flowers, you know, because again, it's just you having been at the festival was all love, right? It was a loving way to open a door for the next person, you know, which was, you know, then Kimberly Rampersand, who directed King Lear last year on the festival stage. And now this year I get to direct Romeo and Juliet, and we'll see who directs something next, you know, here at the Stratford Festival. I can't wait to come see their show. I'll be here.
We'll both be here.
That's right. In the audience with the two little girls.
The two little girls, yep.
In the
they'll
same
be all
row.
grown up. Maybe one of them will direct it, in fact, because they saw your production.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's so incredible to see. You know, for anybody who listens to this, 20 years ago, I don't know if you would see, you know, a little girl in the middle of the festival theater with box braids. The box braids are important because that's cultural context.
It is.
Understanding and enjoying, and not just understanding and enjoying, but seeing herself in Juliet. That's big. That's huge. And that's why I love this production so much, and I'm so proud of it. We're cross-cast with Salesman in China. We have actors of just so many backgrounds who are up on that stage telling beautiful and excellent work. And I want to offer too, you know, the idea of excellence. What is excellence? I was thinking about that the other day, Weyni. What is excellence? Because so many people have an idea of what they think excellence is. And so when I was thinking about this Romeo and Juliet, when I was in rehearsal the other night, I just wrote down, what's excellent for you, Sam? Because so many people have an idea of what it is. And excellence for me is what happened yesterday at previews. When I could tell everybody in that auditorium, for the most part, because and there were over 1,000 people, we were at 61% capacity, I think, yesterday. They clapped after every scene, every transition.
Every scene, yep.
Which tells me, as the director, that they understand what's happening in the story. They're tracking the story. They understand what's happening with the parents, the Capulets and the Montagues. They get the world of the teenagers. They understand the town of Verona. They were laughing because Romeo and Juliet starts off as a comedy. Eventually it becomes a tragedy in part 2. But that for me is excellence. Excellence is when a story resonates, you know, when it's not just for me. Oh, I'm doing it because I'm so cool and I'm directing Romeo and Juliet and I want to feel good about it. Of course I want to feel good about my work, but I do it for other people too, to be honest. Especially
That's clear in your history and everything the company you built and everything else. Yeah.
That's it. I'm in service. I'm in service to the world. I'm in service to young people. I'm in service to communities. I'm in service. And so those sort of really enthusiastic claps and the joyfulness and the exuberance from the audience yesterday, that's excellence for me. Not, you know, whatever somebody can write on Facebook if, you know, they didn't like the play or whatever. It's what's happening in real time right now in the theater, in the audience. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think that's what, you know, I've worked in television and film as well. And that's what brings me back every time is just being able to be there, breathing the same air with those storytellers. And it just feels like we're directly in a lineage of an ancient practice. And that I can't get over. And that's what it felt like yesterday. So thank you for your work and thank you for this interview.
Thank you.
And I can't wait. I'll see you when you come back to Stratford, but before that, I'm coming to visit you in Paris. I like this idea.
Yeah, please come to Paris. I'll see you at the cafe.
I'll see you at the cafe.
I'll see you at the cafe. And you'll see me. I'll be at Hamlet on May 23rd at Soulpepper.
Okay. Well, there first. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, the story is that we've kind of taken the myth and debunked everything and gone, Shakespeare, you know. And he's dressed in leather and he's a rock star. You know, he's a cross. I do say he's a cross between, you know, Mick Jagger, sort of Johnny Depp from Pirates, and a little bit of Harry Styles. You know what I mean? He's that guy.